Now I'm going to do my fifth C# experiment, and in this experiment I'm going to do an operation in a queue by using the exception handling concepts. So I will do the operations like adding an element to a queue, removing an element from the queue, and I will check whether if the queue is empty or not, such operations. So this is my main method. This is the program, and in this program this is my main method. Here I have initialized some variables, that is value, and I have given a value 0, and I have assigned a value 0 for both the variables val and c. Similarly, I have another variable called count, and this variable also I have assigned a value 0. Now this is the try catch. Exception handling is our program. So I have included a try here. Now I have a menu function, menu list. In the first option in my menu list I have given like that, add an element. Second one is remove element. Third one is check if a queue is empty. So the user will give a particular input, and that has to be stored to a variable called ch, and the ch variable will be passed into the switch, and based on the input we will have different functions. So here check the case 1. If the user is going for the option number 1, adding an element to the queue, then here the case 1 will be executed and enter the value to be inserted in the queue. Here we have asked the user, give the user 2 instructions. So we are asking the user to enter a particular value to the queue, and the function will be then the function will go to above. So let's see the functions. We have some header files. Now this is the namespace. I have a class called queue. I have initialized some global variables there, and this is my default constructor. And in default constructor I have initialized a variable size to the value 10. Then this is my constructor and the constructor, and this is the first function to check whether if the queue is empty. In this function I will check by the queue whether the queue is empty or not. So public void is empty is the function, is empty is the function name, and then here another function for checking whether the queue is full or not. In the empty function I have written count equal to 0, whereas in the is full function I am assigning count equal to size. That function to check if the input is integer. This is another function. It will check whether the given input entered by the user is an integer or not. And similarly, there will be we are dealing with exception handling. So here we have an exception. If the user input a wrong input, if the user give a wrong input, it will throw an exception. So here it will throw an overflow exception, and exception is you entered the wrong input 3 times. And so another exception, invalid input exception. So if the user enter any other thing other than an integer, if the user enter any string, something like that, we will throw another exception called invalid input exception. And then here we have another exception called argument exception. So you have entered wrong input type, that is the argument exception error message. So this is an exception. Now function to add element. The first option in our menu list is to adding element to the queue, and here this is the method for adding an element to the queue. And also we have throw one exception, whether if the queue is full we can't add the particular element to the queue, so we will throw an exception like full exception, that is the queue is full, and also the index out of range exception. So then here this is the method for removing an element from the queue, So if the queue is empty, we can't remove any further elements, so we will throw an exception here also, that is the queue is empty. So the empty exception and null reference exception, and this is these are the three cases. And if you want to continue each after executing each module, if you want to continue, if you want to work furthermore, then you have to press 0 for continue. That is the option given. Then we have some user-defined exception in this program, and that user-defined exceptions we have mentioned in this part. So that is class full exception, empty exception, invalid input exception. These are the user exceptions, and I have mentioned that user exception in this part. Now I am going to run my program. First option, I am going for the first option, adding element. So enter the value to be inserted in a queue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have entered 10 elements. Now minus 994 to exit this from this one. This option, press 0 to continue. Now I am going to remove one element. So the first element is removed from the queue, and I have the array queue size is now 9. One more time I am going to remove from the queue. So remove it from queue returns 2, and then queue has size 8. Now the queue size is 8. Okay. Now check if I'm going to check whether the queue is empty or not. So the option is 3. Queue is empty, false. Answer is correct, it is false. The queue has size 8. So we're going to continue. I have done with all the options. So this is the program for operating in a queue function based on exception handling.